Veamos el siguiente video.
I still feel the presence of the terrorist attacks in Paris last night. And when I sense into that, what I'm feeling is pain and powerlessness. What's happening today here, what's happening in the Middle East, what's happening in other places has locked us in to a condition where collectively we create results that no one wants. So the question that I would like to follow over the next few minutes is why? What can we do to transform that system? How can we use the power of mindfulness for not only cultivating the interior condition of the individual, but transforming the collective system. I grew up on a farm not too far from here, a little outside of Hamburg to the north. And my parents actually have been pioneers of organic, in this case kind of biodynamic farming, for the past 60 years. So growing up in a place like that, and kind of growing up in a family like that, made me learn what is the most important thing when you're an organic farmer. That's basically what I picked up from my father, which is, you don't use kind of chemical fertilizers. What's the only capital you have? You put all your attention and all your efforts on improving the quality of the soil. So I'm looking at social systems as a social field, like with the eye of a farmer. And any kind of field, as you can see in the visual, has kind of something that's visible above the ground, and then kind of another part that's invisible. That's the quality of the soil. I'm looking through the eyes of the farmer, who is inquiring into the quality of the soil, which is the quality of how we relate to each other, the quality of relationships, of how we relate to each other, to the planet, and to ourselves. And right next to our farm was one of the battlegrounds, the major battlegrounds of that movement, which was the construction site of the Brockdorf atomic power plant. So one day there was an illegal demonstration, 100,000 of us showed up. Everything went peaceful until finally the police attacked, kind of with a lot of violence, with helicopters, with everyone was running, and it was an ugly situation. Basically, everyone was running for their own life. But it was a 15-kilometer walk back home to the buses. So at some point, it calmed down, and we were walking back. And as we were almost reaching the buses, there was then another final attack coming from the left out of wood, kind of that we couldn't see before. At that point, no one was running because it was too late, and there was nowhere to go. So what happened is the crowd stopped. Stillness. The police arrived, started beating into the crowd, and after a while, they stopped and retreated. I, during that situation, was not physically hurt, but I had an experience when that violence was inflicted on the crowd. It felt like a knife cutting through a piece of butter, except that in this case, the butter is you, the butter is me, the butter is all of us who were in that situation. So that was the first time tangible experience where, although nothing happened to me physically, I was part of that collective body. So I had an experience of that social field, which wasn't just my physical body, but which was kind of a feeling of a collective. And maybe some of us kind of can feel the same thing. So when we resonate with what happened with Paris last night, you feel a pain that isn't your personal pain, but it's a pain that belongs to us in terms of our collective condition, in terms of our collective body. When I returned back home that night, I was no longer the same person. I knew exactly what I would do with the rest of my life. What is it we can actually do professionally that helps us to shift a social field, that helps us to change kind of how a system is operating from one way to another. And that journey brought me to the MIT Learning Center in Boston some 20 years ago. And the reason I went there was because it was an action research institute where this question, how we transform how organizations and social systems work, is explored by doing, by practical experiments. The same situation where collectively we create results that no one wants. What are these results? They can be described in terms of the ecological divide, the social divide, ecological, environmental issues, kind of the social tensions and violence that happens there, and the spiritual divide. So while the ecological divide that manifests in all sort of environmental issues essentially arises from a disconnect between self and nature, the social divide, if you drill down, essentially arises from a disconnect between self and other, where that social field is disconnected with itself. And the spiritual divide arises essentially from a disconnect between self and self. What is a disconnect between self and self? It's the one self who I am today and the other self who I could be tomorrow. The second self is not as tangible, it's not as manifest, but it's the space of possibility that when I access my creativity, I can get a connection with. The spiritual divide is the one that's least noticed. So how does that show up? It shows up when I disconnect from who I could be tomorrow, loss of energy, symptoms of burnout, symptoms of depression, symptoms of becoming suicidal. In 2010, worldwide, more people killed themselves than were killed by war, murder, and natural disasters combined. So that's basically, you could say, across all countries, we have these three major buckets of issues where collectively we enact results that no one wants. What we have been doing in the last 100 years is basically create a little industry for each of these symptoms, right? One ministry or several ministries for each of these issues, NGOs that focus on that, and so on and so forth. I believe that the most important root issue that is kind of at the source for all of the above originates right between our ears. Originates in our quality of thinking, in the mindset that we apply to how to approach these situations. And so what we are talking about, I believe, essentially is a mindset shift from ecosystem to ecosystem awareness. You can reconstruct the evolution of the modern economy and the evolution of modern economic thought as an embodiment of an evolving human consciousness that moves from habitual and ecosystem awareness to ecosystem awareness. And what I mean with ecosystem awareness is an awareness that is not only focusing on my own well-being, but on the well-being of the whole. I have, and I'm sure many of you have, I have done projects in a whole variety of systems: education, health, business, government, sustainability. And in all these large system change efforts, the most important leadership challenge is the same. no one can solve alone. No organization can address it alone. To address these issues, we need to bring together all the different stakeholders across sectors that need to work together differently there. And then we need to move these stakeholders from an old way of operating, silo perspective, or you could say ecosystem awareness, to a new way of operating, which is inclusive of the well-being of others. And the question, of course, is what does it take? What does it take to shift the mindset of a stakeholder group from ego to eco? And what I believe and what I have learned over the last years is what it takes is a journey. A journey that is moving such a group, such a community of stakeholders through the stages of observe, 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 which basically is sensing and seeing the system from the edges, from the view of the others, from the periphery where the new is coming into being. Number two, when then this group returns, retreat and reflect, allow the inner knowing to emerge. Connect with some of these deeper questions that we heard in the earlier talks. Who am I? Who are we? What's the future that I want to be a part of, that I want to be contributing towards? And then, as an idea or a few ideas are being sparked by that, explore them by doing. Act in an instant, which means rapid cycle prototyping. So that's the first thing that I learned. This process only works, and that's the second thing I learned, when you engage in some deeper inner leadership work that essentially deals with tuning three inner instruments of knowing, which are the open mind, the open heart, and the open will. Why is that so difficult? Because usually, there are, in America, I would say, three enemies that get into the way. As a European, I would say, there are three sources of resistance that we need to learn how to deal with, which are the voice of judgment, shutting down the open mind, the voice of cynicism, basically doing the same on the empathy, the open heart level, and of course the voice of fear that we already heard earlier about. Seeing yourself as being part of the system that you're engaged with. So this move from here to here, applied on the level of the individual, what do we call that? It's called mindfulness. Mindfulness is the capacity to pay attention to your attention. To not only see something, but to see your own seeing, to switch on that meta-awareness. When this shift is happening from here to here, on the level of a team, on the level of a group, what do we call that? We call that dialogue. Dialogue is not people talking with each other. Dialogue is the capacity of a system to see itself. The essence of systems thinking is the capacity of a system to sense, connect with, and see itself. And in this project, the U project, the ULab project, it deals with the most, with the disruption and revolution that's currently going on in my space, which is education and learning. And one of the key drivers that's disrupting innovation and learning is digitization. And the way it shows up, and MIT together with Harvard has been a key player in that, is to move all learning, all educational content online for free. So we formed an entity called edX, and that's the purpose of this organization, to make all educational content accessible for everyone for free. Great success, great user numbers, and more lately, also more criticism, because guess what? Deep learning cycle that I was talking about doesn't happen here at all. If everyone's sitting, education was bad before, as we heard earlier. Now it's worse. Everyone just looking onto their own screen. How is that deeper cycle happening there? So that was the experiment. And I'm going to show you a little clip, a 3-minute clip, and we'll then wrap up some of the experiences that we learned from that. We're here at MIT next to a sculpture called The Alchemist, which since its installation in 2011 has quickly become a popular and iconic symbol on campus. Part magician, part scientist, and part philosopher, The Alchemist seems to be in contemplation. But at the same time, the structure is open, inviting people to go in. Now, look at the area surrounding the sculpture. You might notice something familiar. The benches are made from the limestone salvaged from the original MIT dome. As you may remember from the last video, the MIT dome was built in 1916. It reflects how universities thought about education at the time. Abstract knowledge at the top and applied knowledge at the bottom. In the new MIT that's emerging now, the dome opens up and the process of learning is moving out into the real world, to a more collaborative structure that allows people to connect more freely. The inversion of the dome represents a profound transformation that we can observe across all institutions in society today. Governments are opening participatory spaces for citizens and organizations to co-shape the issues that matter to them. Leading global companies are creating spaces for co-creative learning across boundaries. Social entrepreneur and co-working spaces such as impact hubs are transforming themselves into spaces for co-sensing and co-shaping the future of their city ecologies. The ULab has surfaced and co-generated many of these initiatives. As you step inside The Alchemist, what do you see? You see a bunch of mathematical formulas. It reminds me of a picture that I kept on my desk for the past 20 plus years, The School of Athens by Raphael. It is said that at the entrance door there was a sentence engraved that said, "Let no one ignorant of math and geometry enter here." Now, 2,400 years later, what should mark the entrance of such a school that we are aspiring to create? That sentence, I believe, should deal with a threshold that we need to cross in order to experience the remaking of the world from within. It could read, "Let no one enter who cannot see that the issues outside are a mirror of the issues inside." The entrance to this university is not in any one place. It exists wherever you are. And that is ultimately what the ULab is. It's a vehicle to help you catalyze change locally and to connect you with the many of us who work towards similar change globally. So join us. The journey through ULab begins now. This clip basically talks about the dual revolution in leadership and learning today, which is moving the place of learning from the classroom into the real world on the one hand, and moving the inner place of learning from the head to the heart and from the heart to the hand. So that was basically the invitation. There was a significant response. That's the first thing that we learned, that across the planet, people formed place-based communities where they went through this 7-week process together. Chengdu, Mumbai, Sao Paulo, San Francisco, and in Oakland, and in other places. We had companies like Alibaba kind of moving that kind of inside their own organization, governments like the government of Scotland with over 80 hubs across Scotland, NGOs like in the social innovation space, ULab, the Impact Hub with 44 cities. And what we learned is that this amazing capacity to self-organize locally not only happened locally, but also started to link with each other across regions. So there was a much higher willingness and capacity to self-organize than we would have expected. We also learned that you could engage that group on a global community level. We asked people as individuals, groups, organizations, and larger systems, how do you operate today? So on which levels are you currently operating? And they said it's basically habitual and ecosystem-based, transactional with each other in most cases. And then we said, given the challenges that you face, what is it you need to do? And 90% said, we need to connect with these ecosystem awareness, collective creativity kind of thing. And then we said, okay, so you do one thing, but you say you should be doing another. Why? What's holding you back? Give us your answer in 3 words. And here's what they said. Greed, fear, ignorance. At the end of that 7-week cycle, we asked them, okay, now that you have to connect it with the future that you want to create, what does it take for you to make it really happen? 3 words, and here's what they said. Courage. And the last question was, to make that happen, what's the support you need from others? And here's what they said. Love, listening, trust. What that community told us is that the transformation of the deeper soil of the global social field is a 3-fold transformation. From ignorance to listening and inquiry, from greed and selfishness to empathy and love, and from fear to courage and vulnerability. We asked them, in the end, how was the experience for you? 50-some% said eye-opening, and 36% said life-changing. How is that possible in an online course? Well, the answer is it's not. It only happens if you self-organize locally. In small groups, kind of use some of the tools, kind of to have this deep listening, kind of open mind, open heart, and open will experience for each other. So last thing, how is that? How can that be brought into reality more fully? So from that community, what we learned is that a vision is emerging to reinvent the 21st century university and to revolutionize learning and leadership today by bringing together 3 core activities. Convene innovation labs that bring together key stakeholders across sectors in order to address the key challenges of our time, number 1. Number 2, to support these initiatives with new capacity building mechanisms that link the head, heart, and mind, right? The open mind, the open heart, and the open will in structured ways. And then, number 3, capture the knowledge of what's being learned and turn that into methods and tools that further support the transformation journey we are on. To make that happen globally, we need to bring in, hubs, places, core teams, the platforms, and of course also the funding that's supporting something like that. And when you look at this and ask yourself, well, what is that really? It's a hybrid between education and movement building. And at the core, what's animating all of that is a movement that's already there in the world today. And what we are stepping into here, and I happen to believe that, I started with the question, what does it take to transform, our collective current condition, which is collectively enacting results that no one wants. And what I basically said is, what it takes is to cultivate the soil of the social field by transforming how we relate to each other, to the planet, and to ourselves, which basically is awakening a movement that's already in the aware and making that movement aware of itself. So that movement shows up in many places, but it's kind of not connected with each other. And what I believe we are here for as a generation is to bring that kind of change that we have seeds of around the world already more into reality by really making it a strategic focus of the next years to come. Thank you very much.
y analiza los aspectos que se señalan en las preguntas. ¿Cuál es el problema local que has identificado en este viaje y que te gustaría atender? ¿Cómo apoyaría la aplicación de la teoría U para el trabajo de conexión con dicho problema? ¿Qué relación encuentras entre el futuro y la aplicación de la teoría U en el problema que te interesa atender? La innovación está íntimamente relacionada con la capacidad de conexión, conciencia y conexión de las personas con el entorno. Es muy común caer en el error de creer que la innovación está relacionada solo con novedosas ideas, uso de tecnología, grandes inversiones, etc. Sin embargo, si no se hace un recorrido como el que se muestra en esta metodología, es probable que se pierdan de vista aspectos fundamentales para crear soluciones. La identidad, la empatía, el pensamiento sistémico y la identificación de problemas juegan un papel relevante en la capacidad innovadora de cualquier persona. El modelo de la teoría U, más que un enfoque, es una ruta práctica que permite conectar a las personas con su entorno y para generar innovación desde ahí. Esto significa que pensar en el diseño de productos tecnológicos que impacten en el mundo está relacionado con la capacidad de conciencia de los seres humanos, es decir, todo lo que nos convierte en personas conscientes aportará para la creación de soluciones. Para ello, es imprescindible ser responsable de dónde provienen las ideas para trabajar desde diferentes niveles y actuar a partir de cómo esas ideas pueden flexibilizarse a causa de nuevas experiencias y conocimientos. Esta teoría es una poderosa herramienta que te permite tener una visión completa de una situación para establecer una solución que te permita probar a través de un prototipo si es la solución más adecuada. Ahora que has llegado al punto final, esperemos que puedas aplicar todo lo aprendido en este primer paso a tu camino de creador de soluciones. Proyecto integrador. Realizarás una radiografía de tu comunidad en la que representarás el problema social que consideres más urgente tras el trabajo de investigación. Para ello tendrás que realizar las siguientes actividades. Revisa el siguiente video y reflexiona sobre la siguiente pregunta. ¿Qué futuro te gustaría crear?
Dear future generations, I think I speak for the rest of us when I say, sorry. Sorry we left you with our mess of a planet. Sorry that we were too caught up in our own doings to do something. Sorry we listened to people who made excuses to do nothing. I hope you forgive us. We just didn't realize how special the earth was. Like a marriage gone wrong, we didn't know what we had until it was gone. For example, I'm guessing you probably know it as the Amazon desert, right? Well, believe it or not, it was once called the Amazon rainforest, and there were billions of trees there, all of them gorgeous, and... Oh, you don't know much about trees, do you? Well, let me tell you, trees are amazing. I mean, we literally breathe the air they are creating. They clean up our pollution, our carbon. They store and purify water, give us medicine that cures our diseases, food that feeds us, which is why I'm so sorry to tell you that we burn them down. Cut them down with brutal machines, horrific, at a rate of 40 football fields every minute. That's 50% of all the trees in the world gone in the last 100 years. Why? For this. And that wouldn't make me so sad if it weren't so many pictures of leaves on it. You know, when I was a child, I read how the Native Americans had such consideration for the planet that they felt responsible for how they left the land for the next 7 generations. Which brings me great sorrow, because most of us today don't even care about tomorrow. So I'm sorry. I'm sorry that we put profit above people, greed above need, the rule of gold above the golden rule. I'm sorry we use nature as a credit card with no spending limit, overdrafting animals to extinction, stealing your chance to ever see their uniqueness or become friends with them. Sorry we poison the ocean so much that you can't even swim in them. But most of all, I'm sorry about our mindset, 'cause we had the nerve to call this destruction progress. Hey, Fox News, if you don't think climate change is a threat, I dare you to interview the thousands of homeless people in Bangladesh. See, while you were in your penthouse nestled, their homes were literally washed away beneath their feet due to rising sea levels. And Sarah Palin, you said that you love the smell of fossil fuels. Well, I urge you to talk to the kids of Beijing who are forced to wear pollution masks just to go to school. See, you can ignore this, but the thing about truth is, it can be denied, not avoided. So I'm sorry, future generations. I'm sorry that our footprint became a sinkhole and not a garden. I'm sorry that we paid so much attention to ISIS and very little to how fast the ice is melting in the Arctic. I'm sorry we doomed you, and I'm sorry we couldn't find another planet in time to move to. You know what? Cut the beat. I'm not sorry. This future, I do not accept it. Because an error does not become a mistake until you refuse to correct it. We can redirect this. How? Let me suggest that if a farmer sees a tree that is unhealthy, they don't look at the branches to diagnose it, they look at the root. So like that farmer, we must look at the root and not to the branches of government, not to the politicians run by corporations. We are the root, we are the foundation, this generation. It is up to us to take care of this planet. It is our only home. We must globally warm our hearts and change the climate of our souls and realize that we are not apart from nature, we are a part of nature. And to betray nature is to betray us. To save nature is to save us. Because whatever you're fighting for, racism or poverty, feminism, gay rights, or any type of equality, it won't matter in the least. Because if we don't all work together to save the environment, we will be equally extinct. Sorry.
Hey guys, for the past several weeks, I've been here in Africa, the heart of Africa, witnessing the horrific destruction of the rainforest, which inspired me to write this piece. Why are forests being destroyed at such an enormous rate? For this. Today we live in a world where destroying trees makes you money. So what can we, normal people, do about it? One way to directly fight the destruction is to stand for trees. By standing for trees, not only can you save the lives of trees, help forest communities, and protect the rights of animals to live in their homes, but you will also balance the amount of pollution that you yourself give off with your everyday activities, making you a part of the solution and not the problem. This is the option that I chose. But whatever way that you choose to stand for trees, do it. Because a wise man once said, when the rivers are all dried up and the trees cut down, man will then realize that he will not be able to eat money.
Escribirás en una sola palabra que describa el problema que consideras más urgente por resolver en tu comunidad. Deberás argumentar cuáles son las razones por las que consideras que es un problema. Asistirás a un lugar en el que puedas observar el problema y documentarás todo, fotografías, audios y videos para identificar la relevancia del problema que seleccionaste. Escribe a modo de lluvia de ideas todas las palabras que se relacionan con el problema y utiliza las diferentes herramientas del toolkit: checklist, diagrama de Ishikawa, Lotus Blossom y Problem Statement Sketch. Tendrás que definir cuál es el problema central que atenderás del tema seleccionado al inicio y deberás escribir la declaración de este. Utiliza el siguiente formato para formularlo. Él describe aquí el sujeto, la persona a la que te refieres en tu problema, necesita, describe aquí la necesidad, porque describe aquí el insight. Ahora que ya tienes la formulación completa del problema definido, acércate nuevamente a un lugar en el que suceda el problema y entrevista a los involucrados para obtener más información. Recuerda generar evidencia de este proceso, fotografías o videos. Realiza una conclusión desde tus experiencias personales. ¿En qué cambia tu percepción del problema con los procesos de observación y entrevista? Ahora deberás realizar la siguiente actividad. Tendrás que completar el siguiente formato. Yo identificaba el problema como, yo cómo percibía que el problema como. Una vez que se hace el proceso de observación, identifico que mis prejuicios sobre el problema eran, me percibo empático con el problema en, también comprobé que, y me parece fundamental investigar más sobre. Con lo siguiente pondrás en práctica los aspectos de conciencia de la teoría U, lo que te permitirá ampliar tu percepción sobre el problema. Después revisarás el siguiente video con el propósito de reflexionar sobre el papel que podría jugar la implementación de la tecnología en el problema que estás observando. No se requiere que hables de soluciones y finalmente determinarás el papel de la tecnología en su interacción con la naturaleza de las personas que logran incidir para atender el problema identificado. Piensa en que las características propias de las personas afectadas pueden ser relevantes para pensar en la creación de soluciones. Veamos el siguiente video.
In 2018, machines that can read your face will go mainstream, changing the way we live. Your face will become your password, unlocking smartphones and bank accounts.
Face recognition in 2018 will change our lives.
But the technology will also have the power to covertly track your movements.
Moving into a world where machines can follow you around and characterize you based only on your face is worrying because it potentially limits your freedom.
It will even be able to guess your sexuality through facial features alone. In 2018, we'll be forced to face the future. The human face has an astonishing variety of features, which not only help us recognize others, but read and understand them through a constant flow of intentional and unintentional signals. It's one of the unique functions that separates man from machine, until now.
2018 is going to be a landmark year for face recognition because there's been a huge amount of progress in the underlying technology known as machine learning. And what that allows you to do is pull a very accurate face print out of a photograph that uniquely identifies a person.
Pioneering facial recognition technology hasn't yet hit the mainstream. In 2018,
one more thing.
It will be in our pockets.
Facial recognition is going to go mainstream in 2018, largely because the latest iPhone has face recognition technology built into it.
You look at it and it recognizes you.
By next year, there'll be millions of those devices out in the world, and we're going to get used to unlocking our phone. Then we're going to start getting used to getting into our banking apps with face recognition, and it's going to start feeling normal.
But using your face to unlock your phone is just the beginning. In the suburbs of Israel's financial centre, Tel Aviv, a team of engineers is at the forefront of a technological revolution.
We've invented a simple way of transforming a photo into text.
They're teaching machines to read faces.
The face recognition model can measure the distance between your eyes, the width of your lips, the distance from your lips to your nose, etc. At the end of that process, we are left with a simple text, which is the basis of our recognition.
The software has the power to identify one face from millions in under 1 second.
Our accuracy under a controlled environment is around 99%.
And it's this precision that makes the technology an effective new tool for surveillance.
We can identify people without them knowing that they are being identified. We have clients ranging from medical centers, retail chain stores, churches.
Retail stores are using this technology to generate data on customers, tracking their shopping habits and targeting in-store adverts. Churches are even using facial recognition to monitor attendance. And one school in the UK wants to use it to keep tabs on teachers.
We have one school where teachers took 2 long breaks. Therefore, the management decided to put them on the watch list.
But there's one country that's ahead of the game.
China is a harbinger of the future for this kind of technology.
Companies have access to a government image database of 700 million people, half its population.
China is already using this widely in security, looking for terrorists or people who have warrants out for their arrest. But they're also using it to let people pay in fast food restaurants, to access theme parks without having to buy a ticket, and even, bizarrely, to try and catch people who steal loo paper from public toilets.
But there's the potential for more sinister applications. Researchers have shown that your face can point to your sexuality.
It's not going to mean you can take a photo of someone and get a yes or no, gay or straight, but what it does mean is that if a bad actor or an authoritarian regime gathers, say, 10,000 pictures and asks which are the 10 people who are most likely to be gay, they're quite likely to get many of those right.
This new ability to record, store and analyse images of faces on a vast scale will fundamentally change notions of privacy, fairness and trust.
In 2018, the most contact that people will have with face recognition, they won't actually know necessarily. It'll be through security services, it'll be through shops that are profiling you, and that's the more worrying side of it.
But tech companies are forging ahead with their plans to make facial recognition an everyday part of our lives.
You cannot stop progress on the fear of privacy. The advantages of security of business information are far greater than some privacy issues.
This technology is a new kind of power, and the only way we have of dealing with technologies currently is to make regulations that repress bad uses and allow for the perceived good uses. 2018 will be a year where we start to work out what some of those are.
Con toda la evidencia que has generado en los pasos anteriores, diseñarás una radiografía del problema que muestre de dónde surgen sus conexiones, sus relaciones con otras áreas, actores principales, causas y consecuencias. Crearás una cuenta de Instagram en la que subirás todo lo que consideres necesario para mostrar a otros las características del problema, cómo se refleja y vive específicamente en esa zona o identidad y qué aspectos podrían generar empatía. La liga de Instagram y su contenido con las diferentes evidencias de los procesos comentados será la entrega final de esta actividad. Tu mentor compartirá mediante un anuncio al grupo todos los trabajos realizados para que todo el grupo los conozca. La teoría U, como un modelo de toma de decisión, te ayudará a conectarte desde el consciente para generar innovación hacia perspectivas futuras. Es común que al identificar un problema se pretendan buscar soluciones, pero como pudiste revisar en esta unidad, la base de la transformación social requiere poner en práctica los 4 niveles diferentes de escucha para abrir las posibilidades de interacción y no perder de vista las verdaderas necesidades que suceden en el entorno. Ahora reflexiona sobre qué futuro quieres crear y para ello veremos el siguiente video.